It began with the yam fields. In Ogwudike, a village blessed by both river and sun, the fields had always promised abundance. Year after year, the soil yielded plump yams that fed the mouths of many and brought wealth to its farmers. But one morning, as Nneka, the head farmer's wife, bent to unearth the first tuber of the season, her fingers recoiled at the touch. The yam was riddled with rot, its once firm flesh turned to foul-smelling mush. Nneka gasped, her heart pounding as she turned to her husband, Emeka. "The gods have abandoned us," she whispered, clutching her soiled hands. Emeka dismissed her fears with a nervous chuckle, but as the day unfolded, other farmers returned with the same dreadful news. Not a single healthy yam had emerged from the soil. Whispers spread like wildfire through the village. "It's the curse," an elder murmured, his voice trembling as he glanced toward the sacred grove that bordered the fields. The grove was a place of reverence and fear, home to the spirits of the ancestors and the resting place of Ijoma, the disgraced daughter of the first chief. Her story was rarely spoken of, but her name lingered in hushed conversations like the scent of rain before a storm. That evening, the villagers gathered around the central fire, their faces lit by flickering flames and mounting anxiety. Chief Ogwudike stood at the head of the circle, his staff of authority planted firmly in the earth. "We must remain calm," he said, though his voice betrayed his own unease. "This is not the time for panic, the gods will guide us." An old woman rose, her frame bent but her voice sharp as a blade. "The gods, or the spirits we have wronged?" she asked, her gaze piercing. "I warned you all when the sacred grove was desecrated to build that road. I said nothing good would come of it." The crowd erupted in murmurs, and the chief raised his hand for silence. "We will consult the oracle at dawn," he declared. "Until then, return to your homes and pray." But peace did not come that night. As the village lay in restless slumber, a strange sound filled the air, a low mournful wail that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Nneka woke with a start, clutching at her husband. "Do you hear it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Emeka listened, his heart pounding. The sound grew louder, echoing through the night like a lament. He glanced toward the window, and his blood ran cold. The moon, usually full and bright this time of year, was shrouded in a crimson haze. "The spirits are angry," he whispered, a chill creeping up his spine. In the distance, the sacred grove loomed, its shadows deeper than the night. Morning brought no solace to Ogwudike. The crimson haze that had covered the moon lingered in the villagers' minds like a bad omen. As the sun rose, it did little to dispel the unease that had settled over the village. Emeka, along with several other villagers, ventured toward the sacred grove to investigate the eerie sounds that had filled the night. The grove was thick with ancient trees, their gnarled roots stretching like claws into the dark earth. A cool breeze swept through the air, carrying with it an unnatural chill. "It's too quiet," muttered Abana, a young hunter known for his sharp senses. "Even the birds are silent." As the group approached the grove's edge, they stopped short. There, in the soft earth, were strange footprints. The tracks were large and misshapen, unlike anything any of them had seen before. "Spirits don't leave footprints," Emeka said, though his voice faltered. "Perhaps these aren't spirits," Abana replied, crouching to examine the prints. Whatever made these was heavy and deliberate. Suddenly a rustling sound came from deeper within the grove. The men froze, their hearts pounding, as they stared into the shadows. A figure emerged, shrouded in a flowing garment that seemed to ripple like smoke. "You do not belong here," the figure said, its voice a haunting blend of male and female tones. The men stepped back, their fear palpable. "Who are you?" Emeka demanded, though his voice was barely more than a whisper. The figure raised a hand, its long fingers tipped with what looked like claws. I am the guardian of this place, it said. And you have brought ruin upon yourselves by disturbing the sacred balance. Before anyone could respond, the figure dissolved into the air, leaving behind a faint scent of burning herbs. The men exchanged terrified glances, their bravery evaporating like morning dew. When they returned to the village, they found a crowd gathered near the marketplace. An elderly woman, Nneka, had collapsed and was muttering incoherently. "The curse it has begun," she kept saying, her voice trembling with fear. "What happened?" Chief Ogwudike demanded as he pushed through the crowd. "She was gathering water when she screamed and fell," a young girl explained. She kept pointing toward the river. Several men rushed to the riverbank, only to find it stained red. The water, once clear and life-giving, now flowed thick and dark like blood. The discovery sent shockwaves through the village. "This is no ordinary curse," the old woman warned when she regained her senses. "The ancestors are angry, someone must pay the price." As night fell once again, the villagers barricaded themselves in their homes, too afraid to venture outside. The wailing sound returned, louder and more mournful than before. In his hut, Emeka sat with Nneka, their hands tightly clasped. "What did you see in the grove?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Something not of this world," Emeka admitted. "It spoke of ruin and balance, but I don't know what it wants from us." Nneka shivered and glanced toward the window. Outside, the shadows seemed to stretch and writhe, as if alive. "The elders must do something," she said. "If they don't, this curse will destroy us all." But as the hours crept by, it became clear that the curse was more than just an ominous presence. It was a force of nature, relentless and consuming, and it had only just begun. By dawn, the village was in chaos. The blood-red river, the wails in the night, and the cursed yams had shattered the community's spirit. Chief Ogwudike called for Ezugo, the revered village healer and diviner, who lived in solitude on the outskirts. Ezugo arrived with his sacred staff adorned with charms and beads, his eyes clouded with wisdom and mystery. He listened intently as the villagers recounted their harrowing experiences, nodding gravely. "This curse," he said after a long silence, "is no ordinary affliction. It is rooted in betrayal and anger that has festered for generations. What must we do to stop it?" Chief Ogwudike asked, desperation thick in his voice. Ezugo closed his eyes and began to chant in an ancient tongue. The villagers watched as he sprinkled powdered herbs onto a small fire, causing it to flare and emit a pungent smoke. When the flames died down, he opened his eyes, now glowing faintly. "You must seek the truth," he said. "The spirits demand it. There's a lie buried in this village, a lie so deep that it has poisoned the land itself." Murmurs swept through the crowd. What lie could he be referring to? "The sacred grove holds the key," Ezugo continued. "But beware, the path to redemption is fraught with peril. Blood may yet be spilled before this curse is lifted." The villagers were silent, fear etched on their faces. "Return to your homes and prepare," Ezugo instructed. "Tonight, I will summon the spirits. They will reveal what must be done." As the villagers dispersed, Nneka pulled Emeka aside. "What if the spirits demand a sacrifice?" she asked, her voice trembling. Emeka didn't answer. Deep down, he feared she was right. That night, the villagers gathered in the central square, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames of a large fire. Ezugo stood at the center, his staff raised high as he chanted in a voice that seemed to echo beyond the physical realm. The air grew heavy, and a cold wind swept through the square. Suddenly, the fire roared higher, its flames turning blue. Gasps rippled through the crowd as ghostly figures began to appear in the smoke, wisps of ancestors long past. The spirits are angry, as Hugo intoned, his voice reverberating. They demand truth and justice, but beware, the curse has taken root in your bloodline. Before anyone could react, a child screamed. All eyes turned to little Adeora, who was pointing at the sky. The moon, which had been full and bright just moments before, was disappearing, as if being swallowed by darkness. Adeora, her mother cried, rushing toward her. But the child froze in place, her eyes wide with terror. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the vision ended. The fire returned to normal, the spirits vanished, and the moonlight reappeared. But Adeora was gone. The villagers erupted in panic, searching desperately for the child. They combed the square, the huts, and even the outskirts of the sacred grove, but there was no trace of her. She was taken, as Hugo said gravely. The curse has claimed its first victim. The loss of Adeora sent shockwaves through the village. Her parents were inconsolable, and many villagers began to question whether the curse could ever be lifted. Fear turned to suspicion, and whispers of blame began to circulate. 2 days later, during the weekly marketplace, tensions boiled over. While trading yams and palm oil, Nneka overheard a conversation between two merchants. They say it started when Chief Ogwudike's father desecrated the sacred grove, one merchant whispered. He stole a sacred idol and buried it to hide his shame. Nneka froze. She had heard rumors of the chief's father's transgressions before, but never in such detail. That's why the spirits are angry, the other merchant replied. The idol must be found, or the curse will never end. Unable to ignore what she'd heard, Nneka approached the merchants. What idol are you speaking of? She demanded. The men exchanged uneasy glances. We shouldn't be speaking of such things, one said. But if you want answers, speak to Mama Ed. She knows more about the old ways than anyone. That evening, Nneka visited Mama Ed, a reclusive woman who lived at the edge of the village. The old woman was stirring a pot of herbs when Nneka arrived. I know why you're here, Mama Ed said without looking up. You seek the truth about the curse. Nneka nodded, her heart pounding. Mama Ed gestured for her to sit. The idol you seek is no ordinary object, it is a vessel of power, bound to the spirits of the grove. When it was taken, the balance was broken, but be warned, finding it will not be enough. The curse has fed on your village sins for too long. It will demand more than just the return of the idol. What must we do? Nneka asked. Mama Ed fixed her with a piercing gaze. Prepare yourself, child. The truth you uncover may destroy everything you know. Mama Ed tells Nneka the full story of the sacred idol and the betrayal that angered the spirits. A stranger arrives. A mysterious traveler offers insight into the curse, but has a hidden agenda. The forgotten ritual. The villagers attempt a ritual to appease the spirits, but it backfires. Betrayal in the clan. Tensions erupt as a shocking betrayal comes to light. The spirits mark. Villagers discover mysterious marks on their bodies, revealing they are part of the curse. Redemption and revival. A dramatic final confrontation resolves the curse, and the village begins a path of healing. Mama Ed took a deep breath, her voice heavy with the weight of years. This village was not always cursed, she began. Ogwudike was once a land of harmony, protected by the spirits of the sacred grove, but that peace was shattered many generations ago, during the reign of Chief Ogwudike's grandfather, Nneka. Nneka listened intently, her heart pounding as Mama Ed recounted the story. Nneka, it seemed, had been a proud and ambitious man. He sought to expand the village's borders and strengthen its power. But his ambitions came at a cost. To fund his conquests, he stole the sacred idol from the grove, Mama Ed said, her voice trembling. The idol was more than just a symbol. It was the vessel of Ekwensu, the spirit of balance. Without it, the grove lost its protection, and the spirits became restless. "What happened to the idol?" Nneka asked. "No one knows," Mama had replied. Nduka buried it in secret, taking its location to his grave, but the curse he unleashed has been passed down through the bloodline, growing stronger with each generation. Nneka shuddered, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. If the idol was never recovered, the curse would continue to wreak havoc on the village. The next morning, as the villagers gathered to discuss the worsening curse, a stranger appeared at the edge of the marketplace. Dressed in a tattered cloak and carrying a staff adorned with feathers and charms, he cut an imposing figure. "I am Akoi," he announced, his voice deep and commanding. "I have traveled far, following whispers of a village in turmoil. I can help you lift this curse." The villagers murmured among themselves, skeptical of the stranger's intentions. But Chief Ogwudike stepped forward, desperation outweighing caution. "What do you know of the curse?" the chief asked. "I know it is bound to the sacred grove," Akoi replied. "And I know that without the sacred idol, your village will perish, but finding the idol is only the first step. To truly lift the curse, a great sacrifice must be made." The crowd fell silent, the weight of Akoi's words sinking in. "What kind of sacrifice?" Emeka asked, his voice trembling. Akoi's eyes glinted with an unsettling intensity. "That is for the spirits to decide." With no other options, the villagers agreed to follow Akoi's guidance. He instructed them to prepare for a long-forgotten ritual meant to summon the spirit of Ekwensu. The villagers gathered herbs, carved sacred symbols into the earth, and adorned themselves with ash and feathers. At midnight they assembled at the edge of the sacred grove, their hearts heavy with fear and anticipation. Akoi began the ritual, chanting in a language that none of them recognized. The air grew thick, and the flames of their torches flickered wildly. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind extinguished the fire, plunging the grove into darkness. In the silence that followed, a deep, guttural voice echoed through the air. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" The villagers fell to their knees as a towering figure materialized before them. Its form was shrouded in shadow, but its glowing eyes burned with fury. "You have defiled my sanctuary," the spirit bellowed. "You seek forgiveness, but your sins are too great." Before anyone could respond, the spirit unleashed a deafening roar, sending the villagers fleeing in terror. The ritual had failed, and the curse seemed more powerful than ever. The failed ritual sowed seeds of distrust among the villagers. Some began to question Akoi's motives, while others blamed Chief Ogwudike for his family's role in unleashing the curse. The tension reached a boiling point when a group of villagers accused Emeka of collaborating with the spirits. "He was at the grove that night," one man shouted. "He saw something but refuses to tell us." Emeka defended himself, but the accusations spread like wildfire. Even Nneka began to question her husband's actions. "If there's something you're hiding, you must tell me," she pleaded. "I've told you everything," Emeka insisted, though his eyes betrayed his unease. The growing rift threatened to tear the village apart, but the worst was yet to come. The morning after the confrontation, several villagers awoke to find strange marks on their bodies. The marks were intricate patterns, resembling the symbols carved into the earth during the ritual. "The curse has chosen its vessels," as Yugo declared gravely. "Those marked by the spirit are now bound to its will." Panic erupted as the marked individuals, Emeka among them, became outcasts, shunned by their neighbors and even their families. But Nneka refused to abandon her husband. "We will face this together," she vowed, though fear gnawed at her heart. Meanwhile, Okoye revealed another shocking truth. "The marks are a message," he said. "They point to the location of the sacred idol, but deciphering them will require great courage and even greater sacrifice." Armed with Okoye's guidance and a growing sense of urgency, Nneka and Emeka set out to decipher the marks. Their journey took them deep into the sacred grove, where the trees seemed to whisper secrets and shadows moved of their own accord. Along the way, they encountered a hidden chamber beneath an ancient tree. Inside, they found carvings that mirrored the marks on Emeka's body. The carvings told the story of the sacred idol and its connection to the curse. But before they could unravel the mystery, they were ambushed by a group of villagers who had followed them into the grove. "You've brought this curse upon us," one shouted, brandishing a spear. Nneka and Emeka barely escaped with their lives, but their resolve only deepened. They knew that finding the idol was their only hope of saving the village and themselves. Nneka and Emeka stumbled deeper into the sacred grove, their breaths labored and their hearts pounding from the narrow escape. The trees seemed alive, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. As they ventured further, the air grew colder, and an eerie hum filled the silence. Nneka stopped suddenly. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Emeka nodded, straining to listen. The sound was faint at first, but it grew louder with each step. It was a chorus of voices, overlapping and weaving together like a mournful psalm. "They're the spirits," Nneka realized. "They're trying to guide us." The voices led them to a clearing where the ground was overgrown with strange glowing moss. In the center stood a massive stone altar, covered in ancient symbols that matched the marks on Emeka's skin. As they approached the altar, Emeka felt a searing pain in his chest. He fell to his knees, clutching at the marks that now burned brightly. Nneka rushed to his side, but before she could help, the voices became deafening. "Restore what was stolen," they commanded, "or face eternal ruin." When the pain subsided, Emeka noticed that one of the symbols on the altar had begun to glow. He traced his fingers over it, and the stone shifted with a loud groan, revealing a hidden chamber beneath the altar. The pair descended into the chamber, their path illuminated by the faint glow of the moss. Inside, they found artifacts of unimaginable beauty, golden statues, carved ivory masks, and beads that shimmered like liquid light. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, empty save for a single inscription. "The heart of balance lies within the betrayer's grasp." "What does it mean?" Nneka asked, her voice hushed. Emeka frowned. "The betrayer, it must refer to Chief Ogwudike's bloodline, but how can we find what they've hidden?" Before they could ponder further, the chamber trembled violently. Stones fell from the ceiling, and the air filled with the sound of distant screams. "We need to leave now," Nneka urged.